Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Mark, and we are on day 4, part 4 of my build of this Prusa MK4S printer. I gotta be honest with you guys, today's part of the build is the part that I've been looking forward to the most because, while it's important, all the stuff we've done so far with making a nice square frame and getting the axes, moving really well and all of that sort of thing, the most exciting part of any 3D printer for me, I don't know about you, but is the print head itself. So that's what we get to build today. Prusa calls their current version of their print head the Nextruder, and that's what's on tap for this part of the build. So I'm gonna move this printer frame out of the way. I think eventually we're gonna obviously have to install the print head onto this X-carriage here, but for a bit, we're just gonna work on it on its own here on the desk. Then we'll get it installed on here, and by the end of the episode, we should have everything except for the bed and the Y-carriage I think pretty much ready to go on this printer. So we're getting pretty close to complete, and this section today I think is gonna be, like I said, the most interesting for me and also get us the furthest along to being completed and ready to get started printing with this thing. So I'm gonna set this off to the side, grab the parts we need to start out with the Nextruder build, and I'll be right back. All right, ready to go. We are on chapter 5 of the assembly guide here, and the first part of it is just the little idler assembly. So I've already got the parts ready to go here on the desk for that. And we'll just get started. It seems fairly simple. So we've got these little bearings and these very small rods that fit in them. And then we're just supposed to press them into this plastic part. 2 of them sit next to each other. Just like so. And then we can sandwich that together with the other printed part here. Like that. And then there is a single M3x6 screw that looks like it just threads into plastic. Let me grab the correct Allen key here. So we're going to be careful with this one, not to over tighten. And actually, before I tighten it all the way, I'm going to go ahead and grab this pin here as well, because that goes in this other side here. And they want me to insert this all the way down so it's flush with this side, but then it'll be protruding out on this other side just a little bit. So we'll see how that works out. So if I set this on the desk and just press it down till it's flush, then it's flush over here, and we have this side here that's sticking out just a little bit. And now I will go ahead and tighten this down the rest of the way. Snug, but not overly tight again, because we're threading this straight into plastic here. And they actually mention in the instruction guide there that we want to make sure that both of these bearings will still turn easily, which they do. Okay, I'm ready to assemble the extruder, and I will admit that before filming this segment, I actually did go and watch the little video that Prusa has linked in their assembly guide for getting these planetary gears lined up correctly. I watched it actually twice through, and I practiced once. So we'll see now when I record live if I can actually do this correctly. So these are all the parts we need. There are a couple things that I just kind of noticed when I was getting these parts out and looking at them. The machining on these gears is amazing. Like the teeth are so fine and so perfectly machined. It looks really good. And then this aluminum heatsink part here is interesting because it has some wires built in. One looks like a thermistor, and then the other one is most certainly a filament sensor. So like if I grab a spare piece of filament and I run it down here through the filament path, I can hear and feel the little click of the filament sensor, which is right in here by, underneath my finger here, engaging. So that's cool that they just built that filament sensor straight into the part here. Got a little bit of extra like packing fluff, it looks like there. Okay, that's out of there now. So anyway, that's all beside the point. Let's go ahead and assemble this extruder, which we begin with the motor, and there's actually a little washer piece, I've already put it on here, that fits right in here over the shaft of the motor. It's kind of a washer spacer thing, so I've already got that in place. So with that in place, we want the motor wire facing up away from me. We want this heatsink piece facing this way with the wires coming out the right-hand side as I'm looking at it. And it's going to line up just like this. Now we don't screw anything in yet. We're just getting the alignment of all these parts, first of all. And then we've got this printed part here, which fits down over the top just like this. So this side with the little sort of extra cutout goes on this side here. And so that's going to be the assembly that we put this planetary gear down over the top of. But first, we have to get it lined up. So the way that they want you to do that is you've got this printed part, which is just a guide. So we're going to use this for assembly, and then it will not be part of the final extruder. And we place this down over the top of our planetary gears here, so that grabs them nicely, just helps us to align things. And then we've got this outer ring. Now this piece has a very slight chamfered edge to one side. So like there's a little bit of a chamfer here. I'm not sure that the camera's going to pick it up, versus this side, which is just completely flat. So what we want to do is we want to take the side with the chamfer and have it facing down as we place this down over the top of this guide part. And we should then be able to just kind of wiggle it back and forth and get it to mesh with those gears. Right, so I'm actually going to try to pick this up, and yeah, that's going to be hard to do. All right, I'm going to do this in the air so that the camera can see it a little better. So we're going to fit this over the top of this. We're going to slide it down, and we're going to get it to mesh with those gears. And we should be able to test that it's meshed with those gears correctly by actually rotating it, right? So let me try it this way for the camera, and I can rotate this piece here, and we can see that it's nicely moving. All right, so that's our first step. And we want to have this, the bottom surface of this lined up with these gears. Now I'm going to try to grab this whole thing and hold on to it carefully. And I'm going to set it down over the motor shaft here. Just like that. And now I can start to rotate this piece, or maybe just rotate the motor underneath it. And it popped down once, and if I rotate it a little bit more, I should be able to get it to pop down again. There it is. And so now it is seated down flat so that there's no gap anywhere through any of this. And I'm going to go ahead and set this down on the desk like this, and then I can pick this part up, right? So that's what it should look like when this all is fit together correctly. And you can see that we've got good meshing here from our center gear to these outside planet gears, and then our outer ring. Now I should be able to also place this spacer piece back over the top of this and just rotate it. And I'm not feeling any resistance at all, right? Of course, I'm feeling a little bit of resistance from the motor itself, just because I'm, manually turning the motor shaft. But there's no binding up or anything like that within the gears themselves. And so at that point, I know that I've done the right thing. Now, doing all of that, I didn't show you the steps on the instructions, so here they are. Again, I practiced it once ahead of time, and I think I'm glad I did, because it was a little bit difficult. And so now we can take this idler piece that we built in the previous step, and this will slide up through here. So remember that printed piece that I can't really pick this up because I don't want to tip it, and well, there we go. So there's this little gap in the printed piece here, and so we should be able to slide that right in there like that. And then we're going to take this little set screw and run it down through there and screw it in. And they let us know here that this set screw is not going to go all the way down, like so that it's flush with this golden colored part. It only goes, for me, it only goes that far. So it's sticking up a little bit above that edge right there. And that is fine. All right, so we've got our little tube of lubricant that they provided with the kit. Carefully letting that go. All right, and we can open this up. I believe it's sealed, yeah, so it's got a little thing in the lid here that we can use to open that up. And then they suggested that we use one of their cable ties. Probably anything plastic would work, just as a spreading tool. So I'm going to put some of this lubricant onto the tip of this, and then I'm going to spread it all the way around the inside of this gearbox on the teeth here, and on these other gears as well. All right, that should be good. Then grabbing a paper towel, I'm just going to clean off the top surface here. And that looks good. All right, so now we can close this up. This is the top. So the logo fits this way. And I guess that's kind of obvious, right? Because there's only 3 screw holes here and they line up with these 3 holes. This one we've already filled with our screw that's holding the idler in place. So we'll just go down here with these 3 M3 by 25s, I believe. And this will hold everything together so I can stop being concerned about knocking into things and moving the gears out of position. It also mentions here in the instructions not to tighten these down all the way. It says that we'll finish tightening these down during the self-test in the last chapter of the build guide. So I'm going to make those snug but not super tight. Just so it's all held together. And there we are. So that was a little bit difficult, probably the hardest part of the build so far. But it worked out just fine. All right, up next is the idler swivel. So we've got these 3 very small printed parts and then some miscellaneous hardware. And what we're supposed to do is grab one of these. They're the same, so I guess it doesn't matter which one we grab. And we'll start with the screw through here. And then our little spacer right there. And then the other plastic part on the other side. So just like that. And then we thread one of these lock nuts. They have like the nylon little locking ring inside of them. Thread that on there, and I believe one of the wrenches that came with the kit, probably this one here, has, yeah, it has a correctly sized cutout there to be able to hold that in place while we tighten this screw from the other side. I'm not sure how tight we want that to be yet, so I'm just going to hold on to that the way it is for a minute, and maybe we'll tighten it more or less later on. This piece fits in here like this, and then we put our other screw through, and our other nut on the other end. So they want us to tighten these enough, but not overly tight so that this won't turn, right? There we go. And our little spacer here can spin as well. I don't know if that's important or not. Probably not. I'm going to loosen this end just ever so slightly because I don't like how the plastic parts are lined up here on the top surface. And I know that my future self will be annoyed if those aren't lined up. So I'm realigning them and then I'm going to retighten that down. Yeah, that's much better. All right. And so I guess we set these aside for the moment. We take these 2 longer screws. We put a spring on each one. Like so. And then we put them through here this way. Through these 2 holes in this aluminum part. And then we're going to screw them in here. So it looks like they just screw directly into the plastic there. And it says here, don't over tighten them. Only tighten them down until the end of the screw is aligned with this opening over here. So I'm going to keep an eye on that as I tighten these down. Okay, that one looks good. And that one looks good as well. So I think now I should be able to use this to clip this down over here, right? To add tension onto the idler there. And I guess you can adjust those two screws there to change the amount of pressure needed to make that work. So up next we have the thermistor, which they want us to look from the motor side of this part and go ahead and insert the thermistor there. And then there's a little grub screw that goes in from the underside here, the bottom of this part, that we can tighten down to hold the thermistor in place. Now it does say in the instructions to be super careful not to over tighten this thing, and because you can break the thermistor itself. So it says just use 2 fingers on the shaft here of this Allen key and just tighten it down like so. So I guess you want it to grab so that this isn't coming out, but you don't want to press down hard with the grub screw on the side of the metal part of that thermistor there. All right, so that should be good to go. And then from the front side of this piece, we feed our 3 M3 by 20 or by 12 screws down through there. And then on the other side here, we've got a printed part. This is plastic printed part that fits here over those screws. Actually, that fits tightly enough around the threads there that it's holding the screws in place. So now I can let go with my fingers from behind and they're not falling out, which is nice. And then we take this part here and we want it facing that way. Oh, I was wrong. One of the screws fell out. 2 of the screws fell out. That's okay. We'll get this part inserted here. This wire is supposed to come up through here. All right, let's start over because that was a disaster. See, that's why with the extruder, I actually practiced ahead of time, right? The rest of this, I felt like, oh, this will be easy, no problem. I won't make a fool of myself on video trying to do this for the very first time live. But here we are, so it's cool. All right, let's do it this way. If I leave it turned this way, gravity will help and those won't fall out. I think that this needs to go through here. Is that right? Yeah. So if that wire goes through there, then nothing pinches as I push this together. Yeah, that seems great. Let's go with that. 1, 2, 3 screws in place. All right, so that's how we're looking. And at this point, we have to screw this entire assembly onto the X-carriage on the printer itself. So I'm going to grab the printer. I'm going to try to place it. Get you a wider shot. I'm going to try to turn it up on its end, on its back here, so that the camera can look straight down on the work, on what we're working on here. That's actually going to work out okay, I think. And now we're lining those 3 screws up with these 3 standoffs that we put in place earlier. Just like so. And we can screw it down. All right, now they want me to connect this thermistor wire. And along the side here of our X-carriage, there's a little channel here that they've built into the plastic part, which is made for all of these wires. I think this one and some other ones that we're going to install. So they fit up through there. There's a nice place to manage those cables. And then they want us to plug this in to this top connector here. So I found it's easier to plug, at least for me, to plug that into the connector and then tuck the wire into the little channel here. So next we have the fan for cooling the hot end. Maybe I can get you a closer view. Yeah, this will probably work. Can we go even closer? Yes, excellent. All right, so we have our fan here. We have 2 screws. And they want us to slide this in this way, just like so, right? I'm trying to decide if this wire should go above this metal bracket or below it. I think above is correct. And then we have 2 screws here on this side to just hold this in place. And then as we did with our thermistor wire, they want us to run this through this same cable channel. And this one plugs in to this bottom connector right here. There we go. I must say, having built other printer kits where I've had to create all of my own wires, like put the ends on them and cut things to length and whatever, this is really nice. Having all of these, you know, pre-wired and also made to exact lengths so that they fit perfectly to where you're trying to go without a lot of extra slack in the wires. That's really, really handy for sure. All right, next is going to be the part cooling fan, and I need to get those parts and then we'll put that on. So the part cooling fan comes with, you know, the blower fan itself and then these 3 printed parts that we're going to need, and these have the little slots to put some of these M3 square nuts into. So we've got 2 here, 2 on the back side of this, and then 1 on this part here. So I'm going to get those taken care of first here before we start assembling everything. All right, so now we take this part and we take our blower fan with the label side up, and it slides right down in there. And then they've built into this printed part a nice little channel for us to route the wire right around the outside like that. Let me make sure this is pressed all the way down in there. Yeah, that looks good. Then this cover piece fits right over the top here. And then we have 2 screws to hold that on. All right, next we have our air duct here. And it slides in there. So there's these 2 little tabs that fit in right there. And then it should just rotate into place. Very good. And we have a screw here that will hold that in place. All right. And now we can go ahead and put this onto the printer. So I'll try to get you a better shot again. And what we're going to want to do is slide, there's actually 2 little gaps here between the plastic printed parts. So we want to slide these metal pieces inside of this plastic bit. And it just slides down on there like that. Then there are 2 screws on each side that hold it in place. All right, and then just like with the other wires, they've all been designed to come out this side over here. This goes back up through that same cable channel, and then it plugs in to this one right here. All right, so this is the hot end assembly. It comes already in one piece like this and ready to go. And it's actually just held in place by these 2 thumb screws. So what they want us to do to start is to find these 2 holes right here in the side. I'm not going to be able to get you a good camera angle of this, unfortunately, but just next to the fan shroud here where we've been running all of these cables up through this little channel here, there are 2 holes that we can start these thumb screws. Just a couple turns, they said, just to get them started. And then our Hotend assembly goes right up through like this. And I'm supposed to press this all the way up so that I don't see any of the copper outer tubing through this little gap in the side right here where my finger is. So that looks good. And then once that's in place, I can gently tighten down these two screws. All right, so they want me to grab the thermistor cable first that came out of the Hotend there, and again run it up through this same channel where we've been running everything else, which is starting to get a bit full. And then we're supposed to plug the thermistor in up here, just like that. And then the heater for the Hotend, again up through this same channel, and it connects up here. It's behind this piece, so you're not going to be able to see it, but there is a connection right here for the heater. And that cable came out of the channel as I went to plug it in there, so I'm going to re-tuck it. And that channel is now very full of cables, so hopefully that was the last one. And I think it probably is, because we're out of connectors over here on our, what was this thing called? The love board. Prusa has a weird way of naming things. Yeah, we've got like the X-buddy board, and we've got the love board. We've got the Nextruder. I guess their engineering team enjoys naming things. All right, I think now it's time to button this all up to put the covers and doors and everything over the electronics. So I'm gonna go grab all those parts, and we'll be right back. All right, so up first is the cover for this side of our wiring. Let me see if I can turn the printer up on its side here and get you a better angle of it. Yeah, so right here, we've got this door part here, which it wants us to put right here. Okay, so I was wrong. It's not covering this. It's just covering this area down here where the thumb screws were. So we put this here. We slide our screw in from the top to work as a hinge. And I think that just screws down into plastic there. There we go. We can open and close it as needed. Now, on the other side, so, well, I guess first of all, on the top up here, there's a place to plug in our extruder motor. That's simple enough. And then over here on the other side, there you go. We've got two more places to plug in these two, and this one wants to go up here in this top connection, it looks like so, and then this one over the top of that one and into right here. Very nice. And now that we've got those connected, they want to make sure, they want us to do a wiring check and make sure we've got everything plugged in correctly. I trust myself that I have done such, so we're good to go. We've got this little sort of triangular cover piece, which is going to go over this side that we're looking at right now. So just like this, being careful not to pinch any of these wires. Yep, that looks good. So there's a single screw right here that will hold that in place. That cover's looking good. And then we have this final cover, which just slides down over the top. And there aren't any screws or anything for this one. It just snaps down into place. I'm gonna have to stand up so I get a better angle here to see what I'm doing. Just making sure I'm not pinching any wires anywhere as I press that down. And there is a little sort of latch in the printed part back here in the back. that does clip it into place. And it all looks good. I'm taking a look from a few different sides and angles here. But yeah, that looks good. So there is our completed Nextruder from all sides. And as I tilt it around, it slides. All right, but we're not done yet with this chapter of the install guide because they want us to tension this X-axis belt before we complete today's work. And so there's an app for that, it seems. And they list it right here on this page of the guide. I've never used their belt tension checking app before, so I don't have it. So I'm gonna go grab this, install it on my Android phone, and I'll be right back and we'll actually try this out and see how the app works. Okay, so here's the belt tuning story. The Prusa app, it's not really an app, it's just a web thing. It didn't work on my phone for whatever reason. Like, I gave it access to the microphone as it asked, but nothing happened. But on this tablet, it does work. So what they want you to do is move the X-carriage all the way over to the far side, and then we loosen these 3 screws over here, and there's a screw here that I can tighten to, you know, pull the belt tighter. But I'm going to be quiet for a second because I'm going to pluck the belt with the X-carriage moved all the way to the side, and we can see where we're sitting right now for the tightness. So it's showing about 74 Hertz, and we're a little bit low. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten this up, and we'll try it again. So now we're pretty good. We're just ever so slightly too loose. And again, you don't have to be perfect here, just we were probably already close enough. Let's try it one more time. Yep. So I'm pretty happy with that. So with that, we can then go ahead and tighten down these 3 screws, which will, you know, tighten the motor back into place with this particular tension that we've got dialed in, and we should be good to go. I believe that then the next page of the instruction tells me that I am done with this chapter, and I can eat 5 gummy bears, which I've actually misplaced my bag of gummy bears. They're like over there where I can't get to them right at the moment. But believe me, they are very good, and I've been looking forward to them since I ate some yesterday, and so I will definitely eat my 5 gummy bears as soon as I stop recording here, and then I'll go and edit the video and get it uploaded for you guys to see. So that is it for our assembly of the Nextruder, and tomorrow we've got LCD stuff, so the front control part of the printer, and probably a whole lot of wiring underneath the frame here. So yeah, I like cable management so much. So this is going to be not a good one, but we got to do it. So that'll be tomorrow. I'll see you then. Until then, have a good day. Yeah, I'm going to go eat my gummy bears.